Recording in progress.
All right, we will call the meeting to order. Welcome, everyone, to the November 14th Planning Commission meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. And our first order of business is a roll call.
Commissioner Hunt.
Here.
Commissioner Basket. Here. Commissioner Choi.
Here.
Commissioner Mahaley.
Present.
Commissioner Bangs.
Here.
Vice Chair Moline.
Here. All right. Let's see. Next order of business is approval of this evening's agenda. Do I have a motion?
I move.
All right. Second. All right. Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Aye.
Thank you, Commissioner Bangs. All right. How about approval of the August minutes? Any motion there?
I'll move to approve the August minutes.
Awesome. All right, we've got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Motion passes. Thank you, Commissioner Bangs. All right, we're now at the part of our agenda where we entertain comments from the public for items that are not on this evening's agenda. Anybody in the audience here want to make any comments about items that are not on our agenda this evening? All right. And I currently am not able to look at nobody else. Okay. So we're good. So we're on the new business item. And this is a minor subdivision and subdivision modification for 824 Lee Avenue. And I'm going to read my script now. Let's see. I will now open the public hearing on a request for a minor subdivision and subdivision modifications at 824 Lee Avenue. The purpose of the public meeting is to receive evidence regarding the application materials and provide a public forum for all interested parties who wish to comment on this request before the Planning Commission. The procedure for the public hearing will be as follows. First, there will be a presentation and testimony by city staff, followed by questions from the Planning Commission to staff. Next, we will have a presentation and testimony by the applicant, followed by questions from the Planning Commission to the applicant. After these two presentations, members of the public who have joined this meeting in person, by computer, or telephone may speak regarding the application. Anyone who would like to speak in person is asked to complete a speaker card. Those using computer or telephone are asked to use the raise hand function if participating by computer, or *9 if calling in by telephone. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes per person. 2 people present at the meeting may pool their minutes to allow 1 person to speak for up to a total of 6 minutes. Purpose of public comment is to receive public testimony and not a forum for debate or dialogue. Commenters are encouraged to raise pertinent issues and may ask questions for clarity. However, these questions will not be directly answered during the public comment period. The applicant and staff will then be allowed to make a closing statement. I will then close the public hearing, and no further testimony or other evidence will be received unless the commission decides to reopen the hearing. The Planning Commission will discuss the matter and may approve with conditions, deny, table, or continue to a future meeting. Public hearings are recorded for the public record. All testimony must be presented after stating your full name and city of residence. Does anyone participating in this hearing object to the procedure I've described? All right, seeing none, we'll move on. Do we have proper notification?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. And then lastly, before the staff presentation, do any Planning Commission members have any disclosures on this item before us this evening? All right, seeing none, we're ready for the staff presentation.
And sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to introduce our new planner. This is Emily Klein Gibson. This is her first case before Planning Commission, but she previously worked for a city about the size of Louisville in Maryland, so she's doing a great job for us. And welcome, Emily.
Welcome. Thank you very much. We're so glad to have you here working for the city of Louisville, and look forward to your presentation tonight.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. Again, my name is Emily Klein Gibson. I'm a planner too, and I will be presenting the staff report this evening. This is an application request to consider approval of a subdivision with subdivision modifications to adjust lot lines on the property located at 824 Lee Avenue. This application is considered a re-subdivision and was reviewed through the minor subdivision process. So to provide a brief summary of the application and an overview of the subject property, once again, this is a lot line adjustment of 3 lots on the subject property and was reviewed through the minor subdivision process since the proposal consists of solely residential use and results in less than 4 dwelling units. The proposal does not require a PUD application because less than 6 dwelling units are constructed and it is on less than 1 acre. As you can see from the image here on the screen, the subject property is located directly south of Miners Field Park and abuts the historically landmarked Trot Downer Cabins located on the southwestern corner of the park property. It is located along Lee Avenue with Highway 42 located to the east and Spruce Street to the south. The subject property also abuts an alley on the south side that runs from Lee Avenue to Highway 42, and located between that alley and Spruce Street is Park Street. The 3 lots on the subject property total 12,063 square feet, and based on zoning standards, the property is permitted by right for 3 dwelling units. So to provide a background on the subject property, it is again comprised of 3 lots that were subdivided in the East Louisville subdivision, which was originally platted in 1906. It is located in the Miners Field neighborhood, which is comprised of approximately 26 single-family residential lots. There are 2 smaller multifamily dwellings located along Spruce Street. However, the neighborhood is primarily composed of small single-family homes on small lots with a mix of street and alley access. The zoning for the subject property is RM, or residential medium density. The RM zone district is defined in Louisville's municipal code as area which are primarily used for or permit multifamily development at duplex or townhouse densities. The RM zone allows a minimum of 3,500 square feet of lot area per dwelling unit, which means the subject property is allowed 3 dwelling units based on size alone. It is also located in the Old Town Overlay District, and all development on the property must abide by those Old Town Overlay design and zoning standards. The existing lot widths based on the East Louisville subdivision are approximately 18 to 25 feet wide along Lee Avenue and about 150 feet deep. Park Street used to extend through this property and end at the Miners Field Park property line, but that portion of the street was vacated in 1975, and half of that vacated street was vested to the subject property, so the existing lot depth is approximately 175 feet. Here's just a little bit more context for you. This is a present-day image of the subject property. There is 1 single-family home and 1 detached garage on the property. You can see to the left one of the historically landmarked Trot Downer Cabins, and to the right you can see the alley, which is accessed from Lee Avenue. You can also see in this image alley access from Park Street, which is located at the rear of the subject property. There were 2 previous vehicular access points from Highway 42 to the Miners Field neighborhood, which have since closed. One was located from the alley adjacent to the subject property, and the other was located from Spruce Street. Currently, though, the only vehicular access into the neighborhood is from South Street to Lee Avenue. So the request today is to re-subdivide the 3 lots that are located on the property. This is also called a lot line adjustment because the request is not to add additional lots or remove any lots, and there's also no additional land acquisition involved. The request is using the existing land on the property and reconfiguring the lots for better ease of development of single-family homes. So for the proposed configurations, as you can see, lots 1 and 2 will be facing Lee Avenue, and lot 3 will be located behind those lots. Lots 1 and 2 will be about 33.9 feet wide and approximately 112 to 125 feet deep. And then both lots 1 and 2 would have direct alley access with this configuration. As you can see, each lot is a different color on the screen here. Lot 3 would be approximately 50.5 feet wide and 69.4 feet deep and would front the alley with access to Park Street. The square footages for each lot would be 4,689 square feet for lot 1, 3,851 square feet for lot 2, and 3,523 feet for lot 3. And proposed grading, drainage, and utility easements have been reviewed and accepted by our Public Works Department. This slide just provides a conceptual configuration of how single-family homes could be placed on each lot, along with the conceptual exterior renderings and interior floor plan. This is, again, just conceptual. The site plan and layout is not something that's part of tonight's subdivision request, nor is this a finalized design. This concept plan was requested by staff to show that these lots are buildable and all homes comply with Old Town Overlay standards in terms of setbacks, lot coverage, FAR, and roof pitch. You can see garage and carport location with direct access to the alley on lots 1 and 2. And for lot 3, there is a driveway with alley access and potential for an attached garage on the first floor of the home. So with this subdivision request comes 5 subdivision modification requests. 3 of these modification requests pertain to Title 16, which is our subdivision section of the municipal code, and 2 of them pertain to Title 17, which is our zoning section. The modifications are as follows. 1 is to allow for Lot 3 to have vehicular access to an alley where vehicular access to a street is typically required. The second one is to allow maximum depths for Lot 1 and 2 to exceed 2.5 times the widths as shown on the proposed plat. The third is to allow minimum lot widths. Third is to allow minimum lot widths for lots 1 and 2 to be 33.5 feet, where 50 feet is required in our Title 16 for subdivisions. And modification 4 is to allow the minimum lot widths for all lots to be 33.5 feet instead of 60 feet, which is required in the RM zone district in Title 17 of our zoning code. And the final modification request is to allow the minimum lot size to be 3,500 square feet, where 7,000 square feet is required for the RM zone district, and you can refer to the proposed plat for the exact lot sizes of each. So with the requested subdivision, staff has analyzed this against Title 16 and Title 17. Staff found that aside from the 5 requested modifications, all provisions of Title 16 and 17 are met. Most notably, this would not increase the densities beyond the RM zoning standards and does not increase dwelling units beyond what is already permitted on the property. This request is also consistent with the comprehensive plan, which calls for new development of homes while maintaining the character of the neighborhood. The Minersfield neighborhood is included in the Highway 42 framework plan, which calls for no significant change to the neighborhood. Staff believes that with this subdivision request, smaller homes would be built on the proposed lots and would be in line with other properties in the neighborhood in terms of lot size and house size. The request is also consistent with the recently adopted housing plan because it would provide more housing in Louisville. For the analysis of the modifications, staff reviewed the requests under the modification criteria in the municipal code, which is section 16.24.030. Staff found that the modifications keep with the intent of city development plan as it pertains to Titles 16 and 17 and all associated adopted plans. Since the property is permitted for up to 3 dwelling units based on square footage, staff finds the modifications support the development of the additional units. The existing lots are uniquely narrow, ranging again from 18 to 25 feet in width, and they do not act as developable lots in their current state. This is something that was not caused by the applicant, but more inherited based on the original neighborhood subdivision. Table 1 shows the existing lot specifications against the proposed lot specifications, and you will see the proposed lots are wider, less deep, and aside from lot 3, provide more square footage per lot than the existing. Staff found that proposed lots with modifications would still be in line with overall lot sizes of other properties in the Minersfield neighborhood as shown in Table 2, which compares the proposed lots against the widths, depths, and square footages of other properties in the neighborhood. In bold are the properties that currently do not comply with the Title 16 or RM zoning standards, and staff finds that the proposed subdivision with modifications would not be an outlier in terms of lot specifications in this neighborhood. So with all of this, staff recommends approval of Resolution 12, Series 2024, recommending approval of the East Louisville Subdivision Replat B and subdivision modifications for 824 Lee Avenue and with no conditions. This concludes the staff presentation. I'm available for any questions, and the applicant is also available and would like to say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Planner Klein Gibson. Really appreciate it. Are there any commission questions for staff?
I just had one question of clarification. On the zoning map, it shows Park Street going all the way north to the east side of the lot.
Yes, so that must just be a little bit of a dated version of the zoning map. Like I had mentioned before, Park Street pretty much cuts off where the alley is.
Okay.
And it's half of that Park Street that's now part of the proposed,
Okay,
of the existing
perfect.
lot.
Thanks.
Just building on that, so that alleyway north of Spruce, I guess, has been, or excuse me, north of Spruce. No, north of. Yeah, well, I guess the alleyway that's adjacent to Lot 3 has been vacated. Is that right?
Am
I getting that right?
It is just the tiny section of Park Street that's between the
Okay.
subject property and 833 Courtesy Road.
Okay.
It's just that part.
I think there may be precedents I can think of in town for this, but from a alley access perspective, are there concerns about emergency vehicle access, in particular fire vehicle access, if there was an issue there?
Our fire marshal has reviewed this application and did not raise any concerns for that.
Okay, thank you.
What will the address of Lot 3 be? That would not that it necessarily matters, but I was just trying to figure out like if it's on the alley or is it going to have a Park Street address or how will that work?
Yeah, thank you for the question. It's a good question. I think, if I'm not mistaken, that would probably be determined in the permitting process a little bit later on.
All right. Commissioner Bangs, any questions?
No, no questions. The presentation was clear. Thank you.
All right. All right, seeing no more questions from the commission, thank you again.
Thank you.
And we'll move now to the applicant's presentation. And please state your name and city of residence or business address. Yep.
Thank you.
bet.
My name is Michael Reese. I do live in Louisville, and I'm one of the owners of 824 Lee, the subject property. Thank you. I hope that this is a historically remembered event. I remember my first planning presentation many decades ago, so welcome to it. It's a nice crowd. It's a good one to cut your teeth on, so to speak. So we've owned the property. A little background, and then you guys just keyed on one of the quirks of East Louisville was the alley, and I'll just note that we can have further conversations. Eric's here to kind of talk some of the details after I'm done. But yeah, in most of Old Town, the streets end at the alley. No, the streets continue, alleys stop, and in this case, that the only portion of Park Street, which is shown as Short Street, the Park Street section north of the alley was vacated, and so it seems like there's a disconnect. But we do believe in the process it would be a Park Street address. Whether those lines ever change, we don't know. But so again, Michael Reese, live in Louisville, own the property with my partners since 2004. We're the second owners. The first owners, a family that was long time here in Louisville, they moved this house from a mine in Erie to this location in about 1965. The best that I could find in the records is when that address got a water tap, priced much more favorably than the water taps that will be on this. So when we always bought this as an investment, always knew we wanted to come back in and redevelop it, but going back 20 years, this part of Louisville in my memo was really across the tracks. Miners Field hadn't had nearly as much attention. There was an explosives factory where there is now quite a bit of development. There was a gun club. I mean, it was rough. rough for Louisville neighborhoods perspective. Over the last 20 years, we've just seen tremendous public investment in this part of town. The underpass, the fencing in the quiet zone of the railroad, which really adds a lot of livability to that neighborhood. We know the Highway 42 project, the LRC, the ballpark being upgraded and reconfigured to allow for the Trot Downer homes. Additional 2 homes are added to the historic nature of the neighborhood as well. So when we started looking at it, it's like, what does this want to be? Closing the streets created a cul-de-sac. There's no more pass-through traffic. This is really just a pedestrian-friendly little nugget of Louisville. And while there's been a considerable amount of public investment, there has not been a lot of redevelopment or private investment. The newest action is just last year at 1100 Spruce, which is the first house to be built in decades, since last century. I use last century. That's a long time. We're already a quarter of the way through this century. And time flies. But we think this is a more, and then Trot Downer, the Trot Downers got located there, which is great. But to go in and build a massive house by right, 2 massive houses by right, really does affect, in our view, the nature and the character of the neighborhood. The 2 lots on Lee, those are the only homes that will face Lee on that side of the road. That's it. There's no other ground. The rest, the neighborhood is dominated by the ball field. So really just support in allowing us to come in with 3 smaller homes that are very much complementary to what's already in the neighborhood. Modern, of course, but other folks will eventually redevelop. And the idea of people assembling those lots to create big apartment complexes, I just don't see that. And this, in effect, sets the tone. This is the largest piece in the neighborhood. Really, you'll be just seeing other folks come in and maybe do redevelopment and build second-story homes, or who knows what's going to happen on the other streets. But preserving a small, little walkable neighborhood is really the intent, and small homes is the way to do it. And they're all over Old Town. We all love Lafarge and all these streets that have tight little homes, and this is an opportunity to sort of recreate it in a small way and help stabilize how this neighborhood might redevelop. So technical questions are, we have Eric here to do that. And then I did reach out to the neighbors early. I want to kind of talk about that. This wasn't just, if you notice the dates, been about a year. It's not my day job. So we reached out to the neighbors when we first started, got some feedback from a couple that were supportive. Others were a little less supportive at the time. We didn't really have a full proposal even in place. This was even before we submitted an application. So fast forward, we just did another public notice, and then whoever's here or whoever's written support letters will take it. But we know that this is one process. So we still go to council and beyond. So hopefully you can support it, and if you have questions of me or of Eric, then we're here to answer them.
Thank you.
Howdy.
Hello.
Eric Hartranft, Hartranft Associates, 950 Spruce Street here in Louisville. I'm also a Louisville resident, and I live in Old Town, so small houses and some new big houses as well all around us. But I think that I really admired Michael's vision when he came to us and said, I want to re-subdivide these lots into something really small, because a small lot is going to be a small house, and we don't have enough affordable, attainable housing in Louisville. I want to build some. That's a great goal. So we're happy to be part of this. I think it's a really nice project. I think it aligns with our housing goals from the study that was recently done. And I think it's Louisville. It's going to give us some smaller homes that Louisville really needs to keep some residents here that can't afford the big homes. So I think Emily did a great job of summarizing the proposal. Thank you very much. I don't have to do anything, but I can't stop talking because that's just me. One couple of quick things. If you look at our zoning code, it's decades old, and you know, the 7,000 square foot lots, 50-foot wide, you know, that was the suburban model, you know, in the 70s and 80s, and it just really doesn't make that much sense anymore. So if you think about the variances we're asking for, I think we're actually asking for some precedent to maybe have a better zoning code moving forward. And I think maybe the comp plan and the housing study is going to bring that to us. But this, you can kind of think about this as a little test case for some of those ideas, because I think it's what we need in Louisville. And so I'm really happy, you know, to be bringing this forward with Michael. And, you know, if you think about what our zoning allows, you know, so it allows 3 dwelling units on this size of a lot, over 12,000 square feet. And so what that could be is it could be one big house of, you know, maxing out the building envelope. It could be a 3-unit apartment building or a condo building. Again, it would be a large building plunked down in the middle of this neighborhood if we just left it unsubdivided the way it sits today. So that's kind of the option, really. If you want 3 units, you could build a 3-condo building sitting in the middle of that site, and it would be way out of character with this neighborhood. So I think subdividing it requires that we're going to have small houses. So I think this is absolutely the right direction to make sure that what gets built is going to be appropriate for the neighborhood. The only other thing I'd like to say is that regarding Park Street and the alley, in Louisville Old Town, the roads, the streets, the avenues are all superior to the alleys. They run through, the alleys stop at the street right-of-ways, and that would have been true here if Park Street kept going. Well, they vacated Park Street between the properties, but they didn't vacate the alley. So the alley is still there, and Park Street is still there to the north side of the alley, in my opinion. We could probably get a legal opinion on that, but I would submit that that would be more in character with what happens with alleys and streets throughout Louisville. So, in fact, I think we're fronting on a dead-end street as opposed to fronting on an alley. And so I don't really think that's a variance. We could quibble, you know, semantics, but I think really Park Street runs up and runs right into this property. So, and we've imagined the garage over on the alley side on Lot 3 with the front door on, you know, at the end of Park Street. So you've got a nice terminus for the street as opposed to, you know, a lot of sort of garage forward houses, which the garage is on the alley like you would expect in Old Town. So anyway, that's just a couple of points, and we appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Any commission questions for our applicants this evening?
Not for the applicants, but I might have one more for staff. In just thinking about this and the conceptual layout of a potential building footprint, I couldn't remember if it is in the Old Town overlay or Title 17, but are there height restrictions related to these lots in particular?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, in the Old Town overlay, there's a height restriction of 27 feet for primary structures.
Okay, and in the conceptual design that staff had requested, was any imagery provided that looked at what that massing showed if it were taking advantage of that 27-foot height?
Yes, let me go back to that slide. So staff did not review the height for this conceptual design. It was more of setbacks and lot coverage. However, if it were to be built, it would have to comply with that 27 feet.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Basket.
My question is for the applicant's representatives. So you mentioned the need for affordable, attainable housing. Is it, have you gotten far enough along yet that you would seek to make these permanently affordable?
Have not gotten that far along to do that. Right now, it's size and scale and location.
All right. Commissioner Banks, just raise your hand or give us a shout out if you want to comment or have a question.
Yeah, I think the only question, kind of from the question Commissioner Choi just asked, aside from the division of the lot into 3 lots, are there any other variances being requested, setbacks or the like, as part of this application?
Thank you for the question. It is just those 5 subdivision modifications that are requested.
Okay, thank you. And I guess I do have one more question. I think this would be described as, forgive the terminology, a flagpole or a flagstaff lot with this rear access. And I understand that's not typical or not typically viewed upon positively by the planning department in the past. Is there any consideration or concern there? I realize that's the only way you could format these lots, but is there any concern at all with regard to that? Obviously, the fire marshal seems comfortable, but are there any other considerations from the
Yes.
staff perspective?
So from a staff perspective, yes, there's nothing in our municipal code that prohibits flag lots. And upon review, it was the best option staff saw to provide access to that alley for Lot 1 instead of needing something like an access easement.
Okay, thanks.
All right. So if we don't have any more questions for the applicant, I think we're ready for public comment. So let's see. What else do I need to do here? Let me consult my little script here. I think that's it. I think we're ready to open the public comment portion of the public meeting. Please limit yourself to 3 minutes. And again, just clearly state your full name and city of residence and welcome. We're anxious and excited to hear from you. So do we have anybody?
Jane Morgan.
Hi there, my name is Jean Morgan. I live at 1131 Spruce Street. That would be at Spruce and Park. And I heard earlier that the setbacks were not going to be the standard setback off of Lee, and I wondered if the setbacks are the standard setbacks from Lee and from the, it would be the east side of the property, and from the ballpark and the alley. And another concern that I have is that Park Street, I'm at Spruce and Park, and I own both houses on that, on Park, and there's not a lot of parking along there. It's rather narrow. It's more like an alley, and I'm concerned that people in that back lot would want to be parking on Park Street. It's difficult. I mean, it makes it difficult for the trash haulers to get along there and make that turn also onto the alley. So I would not want parking on Park Street as well. But my concern was I thought that earlier the setbacks were going to be not standard off Lee, and I wonder if they're standard on all the properties. So that would be my question. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Okay, Cindy Bedell.
Oh, yeah.
Online.
Oh, hi. Can you hear me?
We sure can.
Oh, hi, this is Cindy. I live in Ward 2, Cindy Bedell, Ward 2, Louisville. And I just wanted to comment. I think that if you approve it, you should look at the setbacks, make sure that they're standard to maintain the character of the existing neighborhood. And also, I liked Commissioner Baskett's comment. So if we're going to potentially subdivide and add more units allowed there, can you put a condition on that or recommend a condition of permanently affordable housing program of some type? Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Does that look like it's it, Ben? Yeah. Okay. All right. Any other public comments? Oh. Yes. All right. Seeing no more public comments, I'm going to, oh, no, I don't close the public hearing yet, sorry. So, let's see, we're going to have an opportunity we could have an opportunity to ask some more questions. The applicant, next up is applicant response and closing statement. Does the applicant wish to provide any thoughts on anything you heard in the public comments? Yes, thank you.
Eric Hartranft again.
Yes.
I'd like to address Jean's comment.
Sure.
So we've met with Jean a couple times in the process because she's a very close neighbor and a good friend.
Yeah.
And so originally, the thought was that we would try to match the setbacks of the Trot Downer cabins, which are set further, closer to the street.
Okay.
The city placed those that way. And it was our original thought that that was maybe the pattern of the neighborhood that the city would like. Clearly, we heard that wasn't what the neighbors wanted.
Okay.
And so we moved it back. And so
Okay.
that was you did hear that originally, and then we've changed that. So all the setbacks are in compliant with the Old Town overlay.
Okay, and so in other words, there's no request for a waiver on setbacks?
Yeah,
Okay.
we asked for no waivers on setbacks at
Okay,
all.
thank you, thank you.
And there was one other thing. Oh, it was mentioned, I think the caller mentioned that we're asking for more units. We're asking for the number of units that are allowed
Right.
in the Old Town overlay in this zoning district. So we're not asking for more units than are allowed by code, so.
While I have you up
Yes.
here, Eric, do you care to comment on the parking question? Yeah.
I mean, I would, I live in Old Town and people park in front of my house all the time.
Yeah.
We live over by Memory Square and people, swimming and in the park and it's part of living in Old Town. So I suppose if the city thought that in this area there was some extraneous conditions that required no parking signs there, then the city could certainly pursue that. I think that's really more of a public works kind of a question that doesn't affect the subdivision. It's more for the city to worry about, I think.
Okay, if I could, just kind of continuing on that, I mean, is parking in the 16-foot alley expected or anticipated? No, okay.
No, not in the alley at all.
Okay,
It's not allowed and not anticipated.
not a okay, that's helpful to understand that for me.
Streets.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you, Eric.
bet.
Appreciate it. We'll have to have you come back up. Sorry. But we haven't closed the public meeting, so that's the plus side. Yeah.
I did want to also mention that we have provided 2 parking spaces on each of the lots.
Oh, okay, that's helpful too.
So there is on-site parking, which doesn't exist in a lot of the Old Town homes currently, but
Okay.
we are providing that.
Okay, thanks, Eric.
Well, and my concern was about the smaller lot on the one that's off the alley, that there would be parking there on, appropriate number of parking spaces on that smallest lot on the east side. And what was my other question? Just a second. Trying. remember what it was. Ah. Well, maybe I'll remember.
Okay.
it. Oh, I know what it was.
Oh.
Are the side, I know off of Lee, it's the standard setback, are all the setbacks standard on the east and the north and south as well, and between the buildings?
What I heard from the applicant was that all of the setbacks would be consistent. The setbacks in the zoning code for this area would be met. That's what
Okay,
I heard.
Great, thank you.
Yep. All right, moving along here. So any other comments, applicants? You good? Okay, thank you. Staff response and closing statement. Staff want to raise or address, I should say, anything raised during the public meeting?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
This is Emily Klein Gibson. I just wanted to clarify the parking.
Oh, thank you.
Comment. 2 spaces, a minimum of 2 spaces are provided on each lot between the proposed garage, carport, and driveway for all 3 lots. So we don't anticipate there being on-street parking.
Okay, okay,
Thank you.
thank you. If there aren't any other questions of staff by the commission, I have one quick one. Just a clarification. The affordable housing part of our code, it does not apply to minor subdivisions? Okay. Just wanted to clarify that. Okay. All right. Now, I think it's time to close the public hearing, and the planning commissioners will deliberate on the evidence presented. During deliberations, no further public comment or other testimony or evidence will be received. Anybody have some thoughts they want to share initially? Commissioner Basket.
Well, I like this proposal. I appreciate hearing from the applicant that they could have taken a different direction to put in a multi-unit dwelling there. And it seems very respectful of the neighborhood context.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Mahaley.
Yeah, I can build on that a little bit. Completely agree with Commissioner Basket. I think the zoning, so I really resonated with the comment and discussion regarding the current zoning, maybe doesn't lend itself to a redevelopment that could help maintain the character. So I do see this rezoning proposal as an improvement there. And as been cited a few times, I think it is in line with, the attainable housing goals that we're currently working through and the new comp plan. I am sensitive to the parking argument, but I think that, again, I think the alternatives are worse, especially, larger apartment type building. And, again, this is consistent with, what we see in the area. So parking will always be tight, and I think they've done a pretty good job of accommodating, space for parking as proposed.
Thank you.
So
Yeah.
I appreciate the approach to be consistent with the neighborhood character, with the smaller lot sizes, much like has been noted. I think it precipitates smaller, more appropriate homes on what would be an opportunity for a much larger inconsistent use. I think I also appreciated in the presentation of the conceptual plan an aspect that was shown related to overall grading and potential drainage. I know it's difficult, especially with smaller lot sizes, but it looks like there's only a foot or 2 of grade across all 3 lots. And when you're increasing, especially from what is there now, significantly on the impermeable surface area of that, it just gives me a little bit of pause about that being a constraint that would have to be a well-engineered design solution when it goes for final permitting. So just more of a nod to the fact that potentially would be a challenge if this was approved. But generally, I think it's a good approach, and I like the way it's presented. So.
I think anything I would have to say on this would be duplicative of what everyone else said, so I agree.
Okay. Commissioner Bangs, you want to add any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm supportive of the application. Appreciate the preparation from staff and from the applicant, and it's good to hear from public comment. We know we need more housing. We know we need more affordable housing. Obviously, that's a loose definition of affordable, but I think that's about as this proposal is about as sympathetic as you could get in Old Town to add this many units in the available space and still be kind of sympathetic to the look and feel of the area as much as reasonably possible with a new build. So, yep, it looks good to me.
All right, thank you very much. I also find myself in support. Oh, I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
I can add a little bit more to help enunciate why I like the small unit approach. Because I've noted before about I think having a diversity of housing type in Louisville, especially as we move towards higher density, that'll help us avoid what will feel like sprawl. And so, with D-Lo to the north there, with larger apartment buildings, and the trend in general being multi-unit housing, I think having a neighborhood, and perhaps, perhaps if it's redeveloped, there will be more of this, and this could help set a precedent. But having the smaller unit would add to that diversity of housing stock. So I think that is a very positive contribution to how as we redevelop this area.
Yes, thank you. So I find myself also in support. I wholeheartedly agree with all of the comments. You all said this really well, and I appreciate that that we have an applicant and a team that's willing to look at something on a kind of a small scale, but do this in a good way that fits into the neighborhood and does address some of our housing shortage issues. So I really appreciate the attention that you've shown to this small area. And again, as we've all said, it seems very appropriate for this neighborhood. So thank you. All right. So I think we're done with deliberations. Is there a motion for this item?
I'll move to approve the ordinance, which I don't have the number right in front of me. Wait a minute, I do have the number.
Resolution 12, 2024.
Yes.
All
I
right.
move to approve the Resolution 12, 2024.
All right, thank you. Is there a second? Thank you, Commissioner Basket, for the second. All right, I think on this one, we will do a roll call vote.
Commissioner Hunt,
Yes.
Commissioner Basket,
Yes.
Commissioner Choi,
Yes.
Commissioner Mahaley,
Yes.
Commissioner Bangs,
Yes.
and Vice Chair Moline.
Yes, all right. Motion passes. Thank you. Thanks, folks, for showing up tonight and offering your thoughts. We really appreciate it. All right, moving on to the next items on our agenda. Let's see here. Number 7, Planning Commission comments. Any comments from anybody? Anybody want to share? Oh, yes, Commissioner Basket.
I just wanted to share that the Boulder County Commissioners are having their town hall. I didn't write down the date. I believe it's the 19th, but it is on affordable housing.
Oh, okay.
So I don't think they're televised because they move them around. But
Is that the one here is it in Louisville?
no, it's in Lafayette. It's at Lafayette Senior Center.
Okay, all right.
But
Thank you. That's-
actually, it's the 19th for 5:30 to 7 at the Lafayette Senior Center.
Okay, thank you. That's good to know. Appreciate that.
Mine's not a comment as much as it is a question. I had really hoped to try to get over to the rec center last week for the open house, and I wasn't able to make it due to some other constraints. But maybe during the staff comment section, you could just give a quick recap of how things went and what it looked like. Thanks.
All right, so yeah, maybe we're on to staff comments then. Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna update the planning commission on a couple things. One, the comp plan, and two, good news that we got funding to update our development code, which is a huge project. But starting with the comp plan, so we did have our public open house last week. It went well. It was pretty well attended despite the weather. We had about 150 people come, which is pretty good. And I did want to call attention to the fact that we've got an online activity that has parallel content and questions for the community, for those that couldn't make it. So we're going to be pushing that out. And I'd encourage you to take a look. It's a very interesting activity and interface. It's called a GIS story map, which is basically going through different scenarios, growth scenarios, how many housing units could we get, what do you like and don't like about the different scenarios. And there's also an activity regarding the values that you all supported relatively recently, the core values for the comp plan, basically asking folks, how can we advance this core value? What actions can the city take to advance this core value? So we're starting to get a lot of good feedback on that. That survey will be open for the next, until after Thanksgiving, December 2nd, I think. And so we'll start to analyze the feedback and start to draft the plan going forward after that. I expect probably a bigger update to Planning Commission. It'll probably be January would be your next big update on the comp plan. So I'm happy to talk more about the comp plan too if you'd like. The other update I wanted to share was that you may be aware the City Council just approved the budget for next year and for the next 5 years for the capital improvements plan. That did include an update, a rewrite of our development code, which would be Title 16 and 17. That's a huge project, and it's a really, I think, long-needed thing. And so we're excited to have that. And we expect shortly after comp plan adoption, so the comp plan sort of sets the foundation for what the development code rewrite looks like. We expect to go out for an RFP on that project as soon as fourth quarter of 2025. So it seems like a long way out, but we're going to get started on that, hopefully right on the heels of the comp plan. So
Great.
happy to answer any questions about either of those things.
So things such as what was suggested is maybe modifications to setbacks and those kinds of things perhaps would be considered in this development code update, yeah?
Yeah, once we dive into it, you'll see how much of a behemoth of a project it is. But there'll be many decisions like that, like calibrating our lot sizes right, our setbacks, but also our processes to be a little more cleaner and streamlined, things of that nature. We've got a fair amount of state laws that we need to comply with as well. Happy to talk about those too, but there's definitely a need to update it. We've been talking about it for years, and we did get the budget for it, so it's exciting.
Yeah, that is really exciting. That's great news on both fronts. Really appreciate that.
Where is that online activity found on the city website?
So on the Engage Louisville website, there's a comp plan page, so I don't have it teed up. But if you go onto that page, it's front and center, and there's a graphic. You click on that, and it takes you into the activity. So, yep.
All right. Let's see, like segueing into items for future meetings. Any updates there? On the agenda, it mentions Coal Creek Village, but.
Yeah, Coal Creek Village, if you recall, was the one that had multiple hearings on, and we punted it to December. We think that we'll probably still need more time after December because there's additional traffic analysis and study. December, I think it was, what was it, the September meeting or October one, I forget, where we said we're gonna need until December. That was aggressive even at that time because of the amount of traffic analysis that needs to happen.
That was October, yeah.
So I would, unless they really move along quickly, I would expect that one gets postponed to January as well. But so it's possible your December meeting could be canceled, but not sure yet. Yeah.
All right. Okay, with that, any other commission comments or anything? All right. Should we make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. All in favor? Aye. All right.
Aye.
Thanks, David.